Okay, here I am. Was kind of working on getting set up here because I decided I'd do something a little different. But I wanted to continue talking about how to make a Negro Christian. And this is like part two because maybe I want to go a little bit more in depth. Not of so much about the book itself, but, you know, kind of the way things are, you know. So let me just move something out of the way here because I'm just going to do this kind of raw. Anyway, I was trying to hook this up, but it was working. I'll try to figure that out later because it's got a nice sound. But anyway, the phone by itself actually does pretty good. So anyway, I probably won't see anything or anybody during this, which is okay because I like to be real impromptu about it. So there's God, my goodness, there's so much going on in the world. It is absolutely amazing. That's my computer. They do that. I don't know why. Maybe they're watching me. They probably watch all of us that talk about, black consciousness issues. I think it always worries somebody's. I don't know why. I wish they would stop worrying about what we're doing all the time. I wish anybody would just stop caring because really, I don't see what the big deal is. Black people just happen to be extraordinary people. I think they're extraordinary. I've been around a lot of them. I especially admire, being brought up by the mother that I had. Unfortunately, she passed away last year, and you know, whatever she was or what she decided to be religiously was one thing, but I know that she cared for her children a lot. And especially me being the youngest, she cared for me a lot, and that I always understood through all the hard times that she had. You know, I understood that maybe it was a job for me to do a little bit better, not to make things worse for the family by any means, but to try to improve yourself. I think I saw her improve herself all throughout her life. She always, she had a job, she got a job, and you look at the times and the years, that this was going on. I was born in 1954. So, after that, when I was like 4 years old, my mother was a single mom through circumstances with the family, and she had to raise us. She had to go to work. And so she would drop me off at the babysitter because I wasn't in school yet. So I had to spend time with the babysitter. And, I don't remember everything, it was kind of boring maybe at the time, but, that's where I was because that was the circumstances. So through hard times, sometimes we need something. And it's amazing, of course, that Christianity was one of those things that was offered to black people as their salve, like to make them feel better, about the situations. And let's face it, it's a great gathering spot for the community to come together. And when there is a tragedy, they can help. So, I remember going places as a young child and, on Christmas and holidays because my mother didn't have much money, but we were happy with getting the net stocking that they had handed us because they'd have an orange and an apple and some candy and stuff. And man, we just thought that was the greatest thing. So we were never in want, I don't think, of anything much. And whatever we wanted was pretty cheap at the time. But for a single mother, I'm sure it was tough for my mom to do that. So I always respect what she went through, and I think the next generation should take it a little further. And we as African people should always try to advance ourselves and understand our surroundings. I mean, that's what culture is. When you think of culture, it's that set of values that we use to maintain our survival. Because life ain't just handed to you real rose. I mean, maybe for some people, I don't know. It wasn't for us. So we have to learn. I had to learn a lot as I got older, and as I learned more and knew more, I did better. I was able to get beyond all of our youthful madness. It seems like we all go through a youthful mad frenzy right after high school. I guess the hormones just mess up our minds. But all the time that this is happening, somebody knows that our hormones are all messed up, and they kind of assist in that endeavor. I mean, they try to. We're presented with a lot of things that mess up our hormones because our heads are all messed up, man. We can't be falling in love out of high school thinking it's all great. We don't even know who the hell we are. We didn't know. Nobody knew who they are really. But we were still creative and did a lot of things. I remember, all the talented kids I went to school with, there was always talent everywhere you turn. There was always things happening, and, people who excelled in track and on and on and on and on. We didn't think about much about the curriculum, even though that, if you studied math and were good at math, you're always going to be good at something if you're good at math, but if you weren't that good at math, then you try to go through other things. But, there was shop class, there was band, there was a lot of things that were handed to us in high school and places that we could involve ourselves with and at least do something. So right after high school, I was playing music in a band, but doing summer jobs and actually I was 19 when I got into the electrical apprenticeship. And getting into the apprenticeship was a very fascinating issue, but I think that's a story for other days. I want to try to stick on topic because this Christianity thing still has a tendency with me, and I think I struggle with talking to some Christians because they tend to make up, they tend to say a lot of very interesting things that I ponder. But I remember talking to a Christian as of recently, and I was actually talking about HR 1242. That's what I was talking about. I was telling them about it, and I said, you know what? And I don't know if you're religious. He said, oh yeah, I'm very religious. I said, okay, well, in Genesis 15:13 it mentions 400 years of captivity. He says, oh yeah, that's such and such and such about. They know that story really well. Well, I thought it was those people then. And I always think, okay, I shouldn't even have mentioned it really, but it's just interesting to me. There's some things in the Bible that they're they're starting to lock in pretty good as far as explaining circumstances, but 400 years, nevertheless, is 400 years. I mean, that's pretty significant. Is it prophetic? It's hard for me to argue that it's not. I mean, I would never even try to say that it's not. But there is something very profound about 400 years and its relevant numerical value with this Bible prophecy and with historical circumstances. When people say history repeats itself, for those who are ignorant of it, repeat it again over and over. And I say, okay, well, so they repeat it. But, the Christians say, oh, no, that was these other people. I mean, he was kind of like, I think mixed. And, I don't want to get into that whole thing. I mean, mixed people are not bad people, but sometimes I feel there's a torn loyalty. Maybe I just sense that in certain people. But he said he had written a book. I said, oh, that's cool. I said, I'd like to read it. He said, oh, I'll send you a copy. He says, give me your BIMS number. That's another number because we at work. But anyway, he wanted my number. He said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to see. He said, today's my last day, he said. I said, oh, okay. Well, I said, well, I'd love to read the book. If you got the book, I'll read the book. So in essence, I said, but I was trying to explain HR 1242, and of course, the conversation went off into other things. But it was interesting. It was very nice and cordial. But I remember he said something that a lot of Christians say when they're confronted with an opposing viewpoint or maybe information from another source. Because what they say is, well, I don't listen to men. I don't listen to men. Oh, okay. They're proud of that. They're proud to say that. I don't listen to men. Because apparently when they say that, what they mean by that is they consider the Bible not the work of man, so they can believe that. And even if I say, well, I was really considering the Egyptian Book of the Dead, because when I'm in my research, that's one of the things I plan on doing. And unless these are long reads, I don't really have enough time to read through all these books, but I really in time want to read through them. and the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Bible, just to see the relevance, because I'm told that one inspired the other, and not the Bible, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, because remember the Egyptians were here before the Bible was written, and the Egyptian Book of the Dead inspired the Bible. It's just the information I got. So anyway, I've got lots more to learn, but I'm fascinated by this revelation, might I say? This revelation that the Egyptian book and the coffin text and the pyramid text, which predate the Bible. Well, this is where I'm at personally in the whole scheme of things. I'm just kind of in the really early stages of a lot of research that's been going on with me for many years, but I do what I can when I can. As time goes on, when I got a little extra money, I buy another book, put it on the shelf, get a chance to read it, research it, can thumb through it. You know what? It's there. I know this information is pretty good because I appreciate a person that can sit and put together a big, thick book of information of ancient history. Now, we realize sometimes, and I mentioned this too in the conversation with this Christian. I said, well, to me, there's two camps. He said, well, there's more than two. Okay, well, you know what? I'm only talking about the two, which is the white camp and the black camp. Okay. There's white people and there's black people, as the terminology, determines today in America. The common, most politically correct terminology is white people and black people. So just so you're clear what I'm talking about. Anyway. So I try to explain to people because there's, the Europeans basically being in the white camp have their perspective and more often than not political motivations for their point of view as concerning ancient African history. That is my premise for stating the white European camp. Now, mind you, I think some of those white men actually got the story correct. And I think over time, when you read enough authors, you begin to see that, yeah, sometimes they get it right, but sometimes they throw something in there. Like James Breasted, I think, wrote a portion in his book about them building a barrier to keep the Negroes out. And it threw me for a loop at the time. I said, to keep the Negroes out? Wait a minute. We have been called Negroes, but when we talked about Negro land, I didn't know of any Negro land. And as of late, someone came up with a map, an 1800s map. I don't know this is authenticity of the map, but right smack dab in the middle of Africa, there is a name, Negro land. I didn't know that. There's Negro land. I had asked that question over 30 years ago. Negro land? We're Negroes? Come on, we gotta be African. Wait a minute. Stick back further in the history, Africa wasn't even called Africa at a certain period of time. It's a continent. We were all there. A lot of black people there. And a lot of areas all throughout there. There's always been wars and conquest and invasions from one group on another. But then, when they lay upon you with evil in their minds and in their hearts, they're greedy and they're bloodthirsty, and they gain a superior military advantage on people who were not really at the time adequately equipped, because they weren't a bunch of barbaric savages, the ones that set upon them. So at any rate, I mean, still, when they set upon us, we were not Christians. Christianity was being spread through those regions. Um, at the time these things had gotten started. I mean, it was there. There were some of the first black popes were. I mean, the first popes were black. I mean, they were Africans. So, we can start really going back and digging back in history and years at the times that these things are taking place, like the Council of Nicaea and Rome and the Roman Catholic Church and the formations of these churches, and they're getting all of this information from ancient African folklore from these books and other sources that were already written. So when a person sits there and talks to me like this God that they know so well is coming through that book, I got a problem with that. I mean, just personally, I got a problem with that. I mean, I ain't gonna tell them, they can believe what they want. I ain't buying it. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it from any person that talks like that. I mean, that becomes kind of annoying to me. I mean, I think it's somewhat pompous and rude. I mean, okay, but that's been my whole problem with a lot of Christians throughout the years when they wear their religion on their sleeve. It's just annoying as all get out to me. I mean, so I try to be as kind and as as I can, when they talk, and I try to be real, easy going. Oh yeah, 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 sure. I'll listen to it. It's like bam, bam. Oh yeah, but if you got a book, I'd really love to read it. He didn't send me the book. He said it was the last day. I thought, okay, well, I'll get this book today because he said it's his last day. He wants me to have the book. I said, you know what? I'd love to have the book. I would have bought the book. If you sold it to me, I would have bought it. Not a big deal, because I love books. I love having opposing, not all opposing opinions, but some, I'll take a listen. Because unlike him, I listen to men. I listen to them. And I listen to opposing views. Because by listening to opposing views, I begin to see through a man's soul very easily when they speak from a certain direction. I have this weird sensation that I'm seeing right through his soul. I can see him quite clearly in his intentions. I can understand his deceptions that he's fallen for. And I can sense it so well. It's such an amazing kind of feeling. I'm not saying he's a bad man. Don't ever get me wrong. But when a person uses whatever doctrine or dogma they choose to accept, when they use it in a proper manner, it has to manifest itself on all levels of how you behave. But if you become condescending to any other human, you have violated all morality, in my opinion. You have violated. I mean, because I feel violated by that type of behavior. You can believe what you want, but be careful about how you speak to another person. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of people called preachers and pastors that have this really, really bad because they stand to make money. For people to hand them money. Okay, so they're handing you money. You become wealthy because you got these little old ladies giving up their houses to you because they're so happy how you were there for them in their last days, waiting, sometimes like a vulture, to swoop down. It's like, oh, this person's dead. I got their house. I got their bank account. I'm off and running. Tax free. Big deal. You do it over and over. Preying upon the situation because they're in your congregation. I met a pastor once. This was really interesting because when I met him, he didn't tell me he was a pastor, but it was I negotiated a real estate deal, down in Texas, and he owned this house and he was selling it, and he was telling me how he lived in this house and on and on, and then he told me, he said, yeah, I used to be an antiques dealer. Now somebody had already told me he was a pastor, but he didn't tell me he was a pastor. He said he was an antiques dealer. Yeah, I sold these antiques. He's told me. He said I sell them up in New York. He says, I would be making deals, and they would be asking me, okay, when you going to get this furniture here? And, and he had this antiques dealership. And then later on, he tells me, oh yeah, I'm a pastor. He talked about it. He loved talking to me, which was actually very interesting because he didn't really have that thing about being so hardcore. But he said he didn't think people would listen to him. But he said, "Oh yeah, they would listen, and I'd preach, and and he had a lot of antiques in his house. I mean, it's like okay. But he made me understand a part of the game that I hadn't pondered a lot, never considered a lot. But then it became quite clear that this phenomena of waiting like a vulture for old ladies to die, or any rich old person that got a lot of money that happens to come listen to your sermons every Sunday, they're the recipients of all of this wealth on varying levels, and it's all tax free. I mean, that's cool. What a scam that is. That's all I can say. So cool. If that's what they do, that's what they do. But then I don't want to get too far into black preachers, but let's face it, I got to put them on the spot. You guys are out there preaching all of this stuff. You're making all this money. And it doesn't seem like you're really doing the right thing for your nation. When you take the money from your black people and you put it in a white bank. Just saying. So if you were even halfway as real preaching that word of God as you really say you are, when you hear my words, you would go straight to that white bank. You would grab all that money and you would turn around and you would put it in a black bank. I'm just saying, if you really were any kind of a man and had any kind of a soul, after you hear my words right now, you would go to that white bank, take all that money, and turn around and put it in a black bank today. Do it today. I don't care what your name is. I don't want to put no names into this, okay? But any black preacher that should happen to fall upon these words that I'm saying right now should just go do this. You ain't got to answer to me, but maybe you will answer at some time to somebody. So I don't know. That's the way I think, you guys. I mean, this is How to Make a Negro Christian Part 2. A lot of these black preachers are involved in this process. And it's interesting because when a nation is conquered and there's a large number of people who have been displaced and sold into an institution in a brutality that they certainly did not agree to or certainly did not accept. You know, brutality has a tendency to make us kind of, you know, we got to protect ourselves and our dignity and who we are. And then sometimes through complacency over the years, we lose sight, you know. We kind of lose sight of who we really were because we're just trying to survive. Sometimes in that process, a child is born that is not as poisoned as maybe they had wanted him to be. And all of a sudden, our awareness breaks through all the madness. And we see very clearly these things, and all of a sudden, we begin to see very clearly as to what the solutions are, what the solutions really are. And you hardly hear people talking about solutions. So, as I talk about these issues of how to make a Negro Christian and all of these things, I really want to offer solutions to the problem at the same time. And I realize that most of the time we're not offered with solutions. Everybody talks about the problem, but there's never really a solution. And as black people, we really have to dig deep for the solution. But I'm going to offer what to me, what seems to me has always been a solution because it came to me in a dream. And it was so powerful that it's lasted all of these years when I realized that it came from a comment in a dream that I had actually made. The words came from my mouth. But all I said was, the power of your blackness will set you free. So I'll say it to you. The power of your blackness will set you free. If your blackness can work through your whole body the way it's supposed to work, you resonate is almost like a lightning rod, and you're able to see and understand all of these things without need for religious dogma or even ancient text. You just all of a sudden begin to see. They call it the third eye. I don't know. I'm not going to say I have a third eye. Maybe it's functioning very well, but there's certainly something that allows me to see the world in a very different way, and I have always been able to see it. But I went through my own madness as a youngster and growing up, and I certainly wouldn't want to return to any of those ways and things. But certainly next month I'll be not next month, but December I'll be 64. So I want to make it a special year as we come upon um 2019. And, for all the good Christian black folks, hallelujah, more power to you. I hope you still take a lot of my words in and realize that it's just out of love for the black nation and for us rising up to our true level of existence as the people that we are and always have been, without someone robbing us every step of the way. You know, Stop the robbery. Don't let them rob your health. Don't let them continue to rob your mentality, your consciousness, your awareness, or your history. Don't allow the assault to continue. It's up to us right now. We do have that power back in our hands, and we need to use it, and we need to rise up once again. The only way to rise up is to become aware, and that's the battle in and of itself. That's the true battle, and that's the true fight. So become conscious once again of who you are. There's DNA tests. They can trace your origins. There's slave charters online. You can look up where your ancestors were kidnapped from. You can see the mix from the other Europeans and stuff. It's all there. I've done one DNA test. I'll do more in the process. And there's always a talk about the Y chromosome and who these people were as pertaining to, the book of. Well, I don't want to talk about Noah and all that stuff. That's for other days. But in essence, learning the truth of who we are, where we come from, and what it really means. You can relay it in a biblical sense, in a religious sense, in a political sense, but in a realistic sense. Through the kidnappings, rape, and torture of the African. We have to understand we were kidnapped, we were raped, we were tortured, and we were robbed and fed garbage. All of these things happen. And this is our job to undo that. But we got to do it by starting here. That's how you undo it. Start here. Once you undo the garbage from here and start changing your lifestyle and living a different way, if you want to be true to a God, find a God that was black in the beginning and is still black now. Go back to that God. Okay, because if you understand those scriptures, it kind of states real clearly. That's when you messed up. You started worshiping other gods. Some people brought their God down. You said, "Oh, you know what? I like that God. That God seems cool." Well, wait a minute. What about this God over here? Well, I think I'll be Buddhist. Well, no, no, I'm going to be Christian. Well, no, 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 no. We got to be Muslim. Okay, be Muslim. Be Christian. God damn. Get it right. If you get it right, behave properly. Don't become condescending to any other human on this planet. Don't do it. You're a liar and you're a fool if you do that to anyone. That's just the way I feel. And I ain't putting no labels on any of that, you notice. Don't be condescending to other people and treat them like they were just there for your evil bidding. Stop it. I don't care if you're a preacher, if you're a cop, if you're a teacher, you're a lawyer, you're a judge. I don't care who you are. That's nonsense. I don't like it. I work very hard to not be that way as a person. I'm going to tell you right now, I've worked very hard not to be that way. I don't want to be that like that. To me, that's bullshit. Treat everybody with respect. How the hell are we going to live up to our full potential with people threatening our lives and threatening our livelihood because they want to go mad and crazy and go shoot up the damn place? For no good reason. It don't even matter who you are. The bullet don't care. Lead don't care when it's flying through the air at a certain velocity to penetrate your body and your flesh. It don't care. Let's get that straight. Anybody can die any damn time. But love and respect is where it all is going to turn this situation around. You stop being condescending. We learn what it means to go mad and crazy when you're eating garbage and taking filthy drugs and putting garbage and nonsense in your system, screwing up your central nervous system, you're screwing up your brain, you're screwing up your behavior, you're screwing up your thoughts, you're screwing up everything. Why? Because then you get hooked on it and you can't stop doing it. Either you get obese, you go mad, you have heart attacks and disease or addictions. It's all addictions and it's all poison until you wake up and stop eating the poison. You got to wake up and stop eating it. And that note, this is how to be a Negro Christian, how to make a Negro Christian part 2, but there's going to be more on the subject because I'm not done yet. But on that note, bye-bye.